Well, Susie,
So excited.
aren't you excited for today's interview?
I know one of my very favorite men are here.
Steve Gronow,
Steve Gronow.
welcome.
Thank
Welcome. Steve, you're our 2022, this year's Reaching Higher Advocate of the Year. And couldn't think of a better individual to get that, and just a servant. But also you have a real estate business. You have you're a broker, a builder, Chestnut Communities, and just so glad to have you here. And you've been a mentor for over 11 years with Reaching Higher.
Right. Yep.
Welcome.
Long time. Thank you, Troy. Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. I'm geeked. In the room of people like you two, feel pretty special.
Yeah, thank you. So Reaching Higher is a leadership course, and it instills leadership in everyone. And you're successful. You're a successful entrepreneur, business owner. So share with the audience a little bit about your story leading up to Chestnut and how you got to your journey and where you're at today.
Wow. So pretty open-ended question there, Troy. We only have how much time? Well, Reaching Higher is all about kids and adults, but I got started with the kid part.
Yeah.
And what drew me to this program, first time in one of my early years of Rotary, Susie speaks about Reaching Higher, and I was so intrigued by it. I learned more, found out more, and, well, why did I care about Reaching Higher? Well, because in my young life, our family was kind of a mess. We had a very broken home in those days. 1960s, East Side, Mount Clemens. You're growing up. You're the kid that has the divorced parents, and that's a stigma in those days that was like a black cloud over your head.
Sure.
So I kind of know how a lot of the kids feel because there's so much strife and divorce in families today. Even 50%, they say, is almost half.
Yeah.
So it probably sensitized me to that, to know what some of the kids were feeling. And hearing about the Reaching Higher program later in life was intriguing. So, I dove in to find out what I could do to lend some guidance and life into those kids that were struggling.
Yeah. That's powerful. So think about the Reaching Higher program and think about the principles, the concepts taught in each class. Which one impacts you the most, or do you see impacting the kids the most?
Well, it's hard because they're all 8 or so awesome, but you overcoming limiting beliefs is a powerful segment of the program. From and Fear to Freedom is another one that's incredibly powerful. I'll never forget. Probably the third, fourth year, maybe I was volunteering at Howell High School. We had a student stand on the stump, tell us his greatest fear, and still chokes me up. He says, my greatest fear, this guy's about, how old was he? He was maybe a sophomore, right?
Okay.
14, 15. I'll never have a friend.
I knew you were going to tell that story.
Oh.
It brings tears to my eyes. I was in the classroom with you.
Yeah.
Tell what happened.
Oh, well, it was just incredible
gosh.
because, the classmates are like, what? And he's just, you could see it in his face. He was welling up, and, you could just feel the emotion pouring out of him. And I connected with that because that's how I felt during elementary school, middle school, because, I was this whacked out odd kid that had no friends, right? And they were all, making fun of you, laughing at you. They never invite you to anything. You don't go to the football game. You don't go to the dance. You don't participate in the sports after school activities. Nothing. You feel pretty isolated.
No one sees them.
That hit home with you.
Oh, man. I was feeling it. So by the end of that class, there were multiple students approaching this young man who are, getting their arms around him a little bit and getting to know him a little bit. And before you know it, he's getting invited. Hey, there's a football game Saturday. Would you like to hang out with us? I mean, this is like hanging out with high school royalty.
Sure.
And one of the students was either the captain of the football team or involved in the football team. He said, "Yeah, come on, let's go. Let's go. You come to the game." And subsequent classes, you can see his circle and sphere of friends is moving toward this cool group of kids that just took an interest in him as a result of the environment that Reaching Higher brings and that contagious feeling of support, unagendaed support. It's just, we're there for you. And he felt that, and I think it led him. I'd love to reconnect with that young man and find out how his life looks today, but
I know, when you love to.
I think that day changed him significantly, changed his life significantly.
That was the moment that, when you said it, and remembered the moment.
Oh yeah.
You know, somebody said, "Hey, you can come to the show with me this week." You know,
Yep.
Steve.
They invite him to a movie. I mean, all these things now, all these social opportunities are coming up, and he's getting into mainstream friendships that are healthy and putting confidence into his little heart. So powerful. There's all kinds of a million moments like that if you're a volunteer. I'm not an instructor. I'm just a slug mentor that's trying to sit there with 5 kids every week and pour some encouragement into them. But yeah, when those moments happen, it's special. Very
So special.
Yeah.
So, Steve, you were the one, or you were the one that helped me to get connected in Howell.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you connect me with Ron Wilson.
Yeah. Great man.
Yeah. You took me to a meeting. We had lunch together, and that was the first program we started in Howell at Howell High School.
Right. Yeah, that was what an amazing thing. You know, when you approach a school official, now he's a superintendent. This guy's responsible for 6,000 students in a district, right? And we're nervous about it. And, you know, I had made Ron's acquaintance previously, and he was a guy that when he came into leadership, he wanted to get involved in the community. He didn't just sit in an office and point and click. You know, he was at every fundraiser. He offered up trips. The guy's an avid fisherman at fishing trips out on the Ossawa River and so forth to help raise money for various causes. And so when I approached him about considering putting Reaching Higher in Howell schools, he says, well, tell me more. And how do I meet this wonderful Susie Dahlman gal you're raving about? And, you know, how do we get it started? And what do we do? And so he's geeked and he's ready to go. And then we had lunch with him that day. Mm-hmm. And after the lunch, he's like checking his schedule. When can we get this first class going? I mean, all in right from the start. You know, didn't take a hard sell, didn't take any kind of, you know, professional presentation. He just knew in his heart that was the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And I remember that was when we had first had the idea of sustaining the program in the schools and actually training the internal people in the school to teach the program. Mm-hmm. It was the way that we could scale it and, you know, move it out. And Gigi Jackson and Jennifer Starkey were our first, Steve, and we worked together in that class.
Yeah.
And we launched that, and we trained the teachers then. And you were there with me, and you were the one, you were the seed. You were the heart that planted that seed. And Howell and Livingston County has been one of our longest and most successful programs. From 5th grade to middle school to high school, you know, our programs are still sustained there, and Gigi and Jennifer are still instructing. So, thank you for that, Steve. That's just so powerful. And so, you know what? I've known you a long time, and you are one of the people that got me started. You believed in me. You helped me with the Rotary, with all the things. I had no idea about fundraising, and you were the one beneath my wings. And I remember we did a program there, you know, when you were doing outreach, and, you know, we created a curriculum together. But as I got to know you better, I remember you'd walk me out to my car to hear some things one day, and I said, tell me, how do you think so big? I said to you, you're such a big thinker. You know, here I am just thinking about Reaching Higher just in one school and doing this, you know, and all of a sudden, hey, this should be all over Livingston County. This should be, but you are a big thinker not only with Reaching Higher, but also being an entrepreneur and being successful in your business. So tell me, where did that come from? Where did that seed come from? You
know, the feel good for people in business, I think, comes from an inner motivation. They have this desire to achieve and succeed. And sometimes, where does that come from? Why do I want to get up early and work late and do 7 days a week and 90, 100 hours is nothing? You can it just rolls out and you have the energy to do it. I don't drink any coffee. I jump out of bed, put my clothes on and go. Where does that come from? Well, I'll tell you, for me, I think it came from two places. One was my uncle.
Okay.
Who he knew his brother was a kind of a wacko, my dad.
Okay.
And he was off the deep end. So my uncle kind of said, this boy needs some leadership. So he grabbed me at about 12. He'd send a driver to my house, pick me up, put me in the car, take me to his carpet warehouse. We'd cut carpet all day and all night. We'd load the trucks. We'd take care of business. Then he took me and planted me with his mechanic. He was building totaled cars at the time on the side. Yep. So he would take 2 wrecks and the front off one, the back off another, and put them together and get a car. I learned how to do all of that. And, when you're doing that, you're achieving something every single time.
Sure.
You show up to work, and at the end of the day, you're like, not only do you have this paycheck, but you have this feeling like I did all that. That whole truck full of delivery carpet was cut by me, measured by me, and loaded by me. So those guys tomorrow have work. And with the cars, we started building cars, putting salvage cars together. And when they got all done, I could get in it and drive it out of the shop. And I'm like, that was a pile of garbage a couple days ago, and now we can drive it.
Miracles happen.
Yeah, so I think ambition comes from successful entrepreneurship. You got to be willing to try and just get at it and see how well you can do at it. And so I think between my uncle and the satisfaction I got from putting those cars together, then you're kind of addicted to this entrepreneurship thing, and you want to carry it forward through your whole. I still get excited about doing stuff that just is new and creates something from nothing.
Yeah. Well, now I know where that desire to help others and mentor others came from, because your uncle mentored you. And what impresses me about you, Steve, is you do so much, and you could simply just, hey, introduce us to this person, that successful businessman, but you step into the classroom and you mentor a young person through reaching higher. Why?
It's that feeling. We talked about it earlier before the podcast started. When you give something of value to someone, your time is probably the most effective thing you can give anyone.
Right.
But when you give that young person your attention, I remember talking to this young student. This is an elementary school class, 5th grader, and I just remember making eye contact. You have to look right into their eyes, and you don't invade their space too much, but you let them know you're there for them. And this little girl, she came from another country. She had no friends. She didn't have real good language skills, and her family was also broken. So this girl was, and she knew that I cared about her because of the way I looked at her, the way I talked to her, the way I would get excited when I would see her walk in the door at every class. She developed some kind of confidence that, hey, somebody cares about me. And that didn't come from a book or a lesson plan. It just, I'm here for you, and you have a lot to offer, and you just dive in. And when you see how they respond to that, I think you'll know what I'm talking about when the payoff is really, I'm getting more than I'm giving when that happens.
So true. So
Yeah.
true. So
powerful.
So tell me, and maybe connect the dots a little bit. Do you receive anything from you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that you take away from reaching higher and mentoring back into that space?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, it's so exciting to get involved with young people because, again, they need leadership and they need somebody to plant ideas in their head that they can succeed and they are worthwhile and they have a wonderful skill that you might catch. And in doing that, we've all seen a big need for young people to bring into our companies and in our businesses. There's a huge labor shortage everywhere, as everyone knows.
Yep.
But in spite of that, we notice some of the kids are just so directionless. They don't have a lot of self-motivation. And when you don't have self-motivation, it's hard to be successful.
Yeah.
So how do you create the motivation? Well, give them something they feel good about. And when you give them something that builds their self-esteem, they feel good about themselves. Now they're more motivated.
That's right.
So I like going and working with the Hull Building Trades program, the Hull Education Foundation, and I go and I speak to the kids in the building trades about a career in construction or real estate.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were doing that.
They invite me in, I speak to them. I ask them how many of you are really interested in a career in construction, and how many of you here because this is an easy blow-off class. And I get about I get about 3 out of 90 that say they really are interested in construction, and but those 3 are worth it. Out of the 3, maybe one comes and works for us for a year or 2, and they get their feet on the ground, they learn a valuable skill, and away they go. It's awesome to know you help launch somebody's career like that.
Yeah. So again, the principle of you get so much out of giving. And it's a leadership principle that's not really taught a lot, but it's so, I hear you saying that's a key to your success.
I guess, our realtors are young. I'm the old gray hair, and our realtors are young. Now, all it takes to be a successful realtor is a heart for truth, honesty, integrity, and professionalism. And you combine that with a little bit of hard work ethic, and you've got a great realtor on your hands. And they don't have to be 20 years in the business to do a A1 stellar job for a client. They just have to have the integrity and the principles and the morals and the values, and I provide the professional knowledge and oversight to make them a great realtor. So I have some young realtors in my office right now that are superstars, and they're on their way to making buckets of money
Buckets.
while taking good care and doing the right thing and making the right decisions. Never put money before your principles. And they, even though it's a commission-based deal,
Yep.
You have to be willing to just walk away with doing the right thing, or maybe not doing the right thing and collecting a check, or those decisions come in real estate deals more often than people know. And you're the one that they're looking to guide them through that transaction all the way to the closing table so that they come away with what they should.
Yeah.
And there's no loose ends at the end. Everybody's happy. It's a win-win.
Yeah. I hear trust.
Trust, big word, yeah. Yeah, people talk about trust a lot, and I think a lot of people have trust in their hearts. And you just have to know how to mine that and bring it out.
Yeah.
And reward them for being that way.
Absolutely.
So powerful how you can give your attention and your love and your support and really see people and change their whole lives. You've been an amazing mentor. I've been in many classes with you. And, Steve, I look at you and you've been so amazingly successful as an entrepreneur and as a businessman. But I also have had the privilege to know you from another side, and that's personally with your family. And so many people, because they work so long and they work so many hours, they let the family life slide. But you haven't. It touches me deeply. I know you have an amazing wife, Patty.
Oh, yes.
That's the wind beneath your wings.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And,
Yep.
You have an amazing marriage, and your two kids, Nick and Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Nick was in one of my leadership classes and has been a good friend of mine for a long time. I want you to, be able to tell our listeners, what have you done to create such amazing balance and meaning and purpose for the priorities in your life that are so important, like family?
Well, I learned the hard way that too much work and too little attention to family has consequences.
It sure does.
It has consequences. You can't get the time back once it's spent. It's the only thing you can never see again, those years when the kids are growing up. And I have to admit, I worked like an idiot 90, 100 hours a week. Was nothing to me. I didn't care if it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, doesn't matter. I'm working. And that will come back around to bite you if you're not careful. And if I could reach out to young entrepreneurs and coach them a little bit about that time balance thing, it's got to be at least 50-50. You have to get to that point where it's not 90% work and 10% family. You got to get that to 50-50, and then if you can work it the other way, you're a real hero. But I made that mistake, and I spent a lot of the kids always knew I was there, and I loved them, and my wife and everything else, but not near enough time and focus and attention on all the necessities of a youth growing up in a family. They need the dad to be with them during those challenging moments of their life where they don't know what to do. They're feeling insecure and lonely, and the friends don't like them maybe, and they're struggling with this, struggling with that. If I'm not home, I can't help.
I know.
But I did catch on eventually with a couple of hard knocks upside my head from various people in my life. And so now it's super important to pour into my sons and my grandchildren and make time for them. So those demands of my business, because I have such a wonderful team, I don't have to be there. I would choose. It's a choice. Everything's a choice. It's a choice for me to be sitting here today. It's business hours right now. I could be out.
I know. We're so grateful.
And then when you're in the classroom, and if you're going to be a mentor, you're going to trade those hours of your life for that experience that you're going to get. And I will tell you, there is no price you could put on it, how good it makes you feel to deliver that to those young people from middle school, elementary school, high school, even the adult classes.
Yeah.
It's such a huge payoff. So working now looks more like I'm in the second half. I'm in chapter 2.
Yes.
So you spend the first half accumulating, and you spend the second half giving it all back.
And you do that so well.
That's
Yeah,
what we're
you've
trying to
helped
do
us
now.
so
Is
much.
just give it back. It's more than I need. It's more than most of us make more than we'll ever spend. But we hang on to it like it's a lifeline, and you have to have that number in an account somewhere to feel good. But you don't need as much as you think you need.
Yeah, it just inspires me so much, and I so feel like you have such integrity and such a good balance in your life and such an amazing family, and it pulls at my heart because I didn't have that when I was young. My dad worked all the time, and we worked all the time, so I didn't have moments with him. I can't look back and remember the moments that I had with him, but that's how you've built a rich life. You're a rich man in many ways because your kids have many magical moments with you.
Yeah, they do, and I'm trying to make up for lost time. You know,
Hey.
my oldest son is 43, and my youngest one is 42. So I got a lot of making up to do. But they feel it and they know it, and I've talked to them about it, and they're not making those mistakes. They're spending that time with their young families, and they're doing the right things. So even though we may have stumbled and maybe not made the right decisions as young fathers, it's never too late to turn that around. It's never too late to volunteer time in the community and pour into your family and put less money on that almighty dollar, less attention on that almighty dollar. It's
Yeah.
just-
Thanks for that wisdom. It's important.
Yeah. You talked about before, even you used, I think, maybe the word knucklehead when you were young, right?
Oh, yeah, I was a knucklehead for sure.
So, what advice would you give someone who's sitting there listening to you now saying, I have regret over maybe some of the mistakes I've made? And we've heard that in Reaching Higher, you as a mentor. What do you say, and how would you encourage someone to get out of that rut?
Well, I have to be careful. In the schools, I can't talk too much about God, but I will talk about God here in your podcast a little bit because he's the great forgiver.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he's the one that, I don't care what you did. It's all,
Yeah.
you are forgiven and you have a new life ahead of you in him. And that's part of the message that I think students, young children, youth, they need to hear more of that from their family, from their uncle, from their mom, from their dad, from somebody. Yeah, the power of hope and the skills to cope, just like
That's
Reaching
right.
Higher, right?
That's right.
So my prayer would be that faith would go more forward in widespread America with our families. And don't be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to show your faith in public. Don't be afraid to pray over your meal. Don't be afraid to ask for permission from your guests at the table. Hey, could we throw a prayer over this meal before we start?
Absolutely.
Those things will send a message.
Yeah.
That'll maybe cause folks to have a little pause. Maybe they're raising some kids that are drifting a little bit, and there's no faith in their home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the chances of success of a child being raised in a faith-based home are infinitely higher
Yes.
than children raised in a non-faith-based home. And that's just a statistical fact. If you guys want to Google that all over the internet, you'll find lots of evidence that that's how it works. But when the family's broken and there is nothing there, who's left when that child's out there swinging in the wind and there's nothing, there's no hope there, there's no family, there's no faith, there's certainly no Jesus in their life? Who's there? Well, the community is there. We're there if we want to be, if we choose to be.
Choose to be.
And we can make a difference. We're not going to thump them over the head with the Bible, but they're going to get the drift of how we roll if they spend a little time with us, and they get that energy. And I think that's what the magic of Reaching Higher brings, even though we can't, you gotta be careful in the classroom.
Oh, yeah.
Get
Definitely.
tossed out of there in our ear if we start bringing too much of that in there. But
Yep.
but the feeling, they know what's going on, and they want more of it.
Yeah, they can feel it. They can feel it.
Absolutely.
So you talked a little bit about balance and with your family. So what do you do to recharge? What do you do to unplug and recharge?
I'm ready tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact.
I was going to say, I know
yeah.
what you do.
So a childhood experience, really quick, super quick story. I'm 10 years old, family's exploded. My dad's off the deep end. We're just trying to hang on by our fingernails, my little brother and I. And my grandpa, he comes up, and he's the knight in shining armor, right? He says, let's get out of here. Let's go do something. He would snatch me up, and we'd go to Belle Isle. And this is the 1960s. He was a fisherman, and he busted out this homemade tackle box with these homemade weights and these homemade lures, set up a little line for me, put 2 worms on 2 hooks, handed it to me, dropped it over the side of the rocks there, and we're on the Detroit River looking out at the river. And within a couple of seconds, the pole is jerking and pulling, and okay, reel it in, Stevie. And I reeled it in. Here's 2 perch flopping away on this thing, and I was just hooked in a second about fishing. Right? It was such a positive experience. And a few minutes later, maybe 15 or 20 minutes later, this great maroon-colored wall of steel rolls by. And he says, what is that, Grandpa? Holy cow, what is that? He says, well, that's the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's an ore carrier. It's bringing ore to our steel mills to build cars. Yeah. And, taking me to Beaver Island for family
wow.
trips and tramping through the swamps, hunting frogs and stuff with him. See, every child needs somebody to do those kind of things with them. So I get recharged by reliving some of that stuff, right?
That's what feeds your soul.
Yeah. Boating, the water. I started raising our family up on boats. Patty and I, every summer, 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, 2 weeks in August, we would jump on the boat, take our kids and another family and their kids. We had 9 of us on a 34 Sea Ray, all the Great Lakes every summer. So that is still part of me. I love boating, and tomorrow morning we're heading down to the Keys, and
know.
I have a boat down there right now that we just picked up. So yeah, the water and the serenity, and the more remote the better. The less people the better.
Absolutely.
So yeah, recharging and then of course you get a recharge out of doing a Reaching Higher class too.
You do.
That's huge. That's huge. But when you want to be with yourself and your immediate family, that's how I do it. I pray and I spend time on the water.
Awesome.
No better place. I know Patty says that's her favorite thing, to get you away. As soon as you get on the boat, your face looks calm, you look peaceful, you're happy, you're with your family, and
That's funny.
those are the magical moments.
Yeah, we need more of those. All of us need more. We get caught up in our life so much sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there is a recharge.
Absolutely.
Or recreation is just another word for recreation. And
Well, I like that.
You
Never heard that.
You do. You recreate yourself when you do that, when you take that pause and just sort of come back. Remember, second half, it's chapter 2 now. So
know.
it's time to bring it all back.
Well, if we don't intentionally do that, we never have the opportunity to reflect. And when you think about being on the water, you think about fishing, you think about some of that downtime, just your mind is able to go and intentionally reflect. And I think that's just such a powerful principle.
Right. And the busyness of the world will prevent you from doing that.
Will prevent you totally.
And it'll be right there when you come back. Right?
Pretty much.
Absolutely.
Pretty much. I mean, we've got a lot going on right now in our construction and real estate company. And people say, you can't leave. And I go, watch me.
And it'll still be okay.
I'm going. It's because I trust the people that are there.
Yeah.
The-
Good people.
I have people that are incredible. They care about what's going on. They care about each other. There's a culture in our company that Tim and Gina Wessel have helped us with, and Gina's our HR director, and Tim's our resident pastor. So there's so many good things that come from intentionally building a culture within your company, because it does give you freedom. If you're an entrepreneur guy like me, you got to find freedom somehow, but you got to be able to let go and trust those that you're leaving behind in charge. And if you've built that relationship fundamentally on trust, and we all share a common faith, I don't think it gets any better than that, because you can.
Isn't it the best?
You can roll out of there and you can not think twice about it, because it's all good. They're handling it. They're making the right decisions. They're always doing the right thing. No second guessing. It's beautiful.
You deserve it. After all these years, you
Well,
deserve it.
Thank you, Susie.
Steve, so you know what? You've always taken time in your busy career and all the things you're doing I would always call you in to see if you'd mentor. And you'd come in and you'd sit in the class and you'd pour your soul and your heart out. And now we all know why. But I want you to remember, and you talked about one incident, but think back over the years and think about what was another magical moment that just took your breath away.
Wow, there was a ninth grade experience I had when at Clintondale High School. It was actually the middle school there, and I was asked to be in a play. I was going to be a star in a play, and I was in the play The Wizard of Oz. I was the Tin Man.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And in the Tin Man, there's a scene where all of the three characters, Dorothy, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man, are thanking the wizard for granting them the wish that they were looking for. Dorothy, thank you, wizard, for going to send me home, and Cowardly Lion, thank you for courage. And the Tin Man, I'm supposed to say, thank you for giving me a heart, and I'm supposed to reach for my heart. Well, at the moment, in front of all these people, 1,000 people in an auditorium, I thank you, Mr. Wizard, for my heart, and my heart falls out of my chest to the floor of the stage. And everyone in the audience is roaring about this, roaring crazy, and I'm going, oh my God, they're laughing at me. And after my shameful performance in the play, at the end of the semester, during an assembly near the end of the year, they called me up there to the stage, and they awarded me the Best Actor Award for
you're
that play.
kidding.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It's a stupid little $2 trophy this big, right? That I still have. And what a crazy thing. But that's, kids remember different parts, and that's a very inspiring moment that, when we say I can and I am somebody in reaching higher.
Absolutely.
Well, I did.
You did, and you were, and I think probably your heart fell out because it's so big. You have such a big heart.
I don't know.
So in the Reaching Higher classroom, tell me a magical moment that you saw for one of the kids that you just.
I saw moments like that in Reaching Higher, where they were the star. And the best, we talked about the boy with Fear to Freedom, but I will tell you that in the 5th grade slot,
I love our 5th grade program.
the 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, the magic there is the influence you can have at that point is powerful because they're not hardened.
That's right.
They're malleable, they're open, receiving, trusting. They have that brief moment in their young life where you, given the right circumstances and the right lesson plan to follow, can make a huge difference. And that happens 8 times in one class. You have all these chances to do this. And some of the notes that we write, I mean, I can remember one particular instance where I wrote, every week we write an encouraging note and mail it. And at the end, I never knew if the kids ever got them. Because some of the kids would say, hey, I got your note, I got this, but not, all the time. Well, at the end, I had a student who during the graduation said, I got all your notes.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you, they're all pinned up right next to my bed.
Wow.
And oh my goodness, really? And it just, it sends chills to know that you have that kind of positive influence on a young person's life. So in Reaching Higher, hearing that and validating that all those hours you spend grinding out those notes, which is, that's a lot of notes, they pay off. They pay off.
And one of my next questions was going to be, why should somebody else take time to mentor in Reaching Higher?
Yeah. Well, you can see how much I've enjoyed it, and I pitch it a lot to friends and community.
You do.
And I hear it. I hear the typical response is, I'll do that when I'm not so busy. Right now, I've got my job, and my kids are young, and maybe when I'm your age. I'm like, oh, really? What am I, a
thanks
fossil?
for that.
Yeah, right. So, and some of them will pick up on it. And there are some certified instructors now that I've invited to be mentors with me. Chris Child's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we got together, and I realized how powerful he was and what an effective leader.
Oh my
Sports
gosh.
guy, just got the muscles ripping everywhere, and motivational and positive as you can get. And he's in the classroom, and I'm watching him with these kids, and he's performing miracles right in front of me.
Yeah.
These kids are just coming up and blossoming and glowing and getting all geeked up about themselves again. And you see that, and that's because Chris had such good mojo with them, and he knew what to do, and it came from his heart. It wasn't faked or anything like that.
No, he's a great
He just
man.
pours it out. And then next thing you know, I think I said to him, well, Chris, you're so good at this. Why don't you become an instructor? Next thing I know, a couple months go by, I'm an instructor. He's like, I'm an instructor now, Steve. Really? Yeah, South Lyon, I'm doing it over there. And you can just see him lighten up talking about the experiences that he has with those kids. So think about that. Everyone has a life story, an epitaph, if you will, at the end.
Yeah.
And what are they going to say, about you when they're all preaching about, their thoughts of you in the final? You're writing that script right now with what you're living, right? And so it's not about the money, the cars, the house, the boat, or any of that. It's the difference that you made. So why should you become a Reaching Higher mentor? Because what a perfect place to give your skills and give of yourself. Yeah. A lot of these are kids, you see them once, you may never see them again. And you'll never really know for sure what an impact you may have had. Right. But believe me, you have more reach and more impact than you can possibly imagine at the end of the day. So I would jump on board, get involved with Reaching Higher, and I'll when I'm doing classes, if it's first time and I can work it in my school, I'll do it with you. Especially men, we need men more than ever. Nothing against the women.
No,
the women are amazing.
That's right, though. We need more men figures. Kids don't have it in their life.
We need them at Southwest Elementary right now for Gigi Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And men, you're not so busy. It's just a choice.
It's a choice.
It's really, I can look any man in the eye that gives me the excuse of, well, it's my job and I could never get that time off and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. No, it's a choice. You can figure it out. If you had to go for cancer treatment,
that's right.
do you think that you would think twice about taking time off for work if it was going to save your own life? Well, what if you could save someone else's life by being there in that classroom?
That's right. So I also want to ask you, you've been mentoring 11 years. And we've all kind of come through a unique time, a unique season, which was COVID.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been in the schools before and after that. So talk a little bit about your experience and the need that you see now and maybe how Reaching Higher helps fill that need.
It's greater than ever, actually, because the isolationism and the lonely feeling of being in an online class. Mm-hmm. Well, what an online class is you facing a square box. Yeah. You're not really interacting with a real live person or a group of persons. And although maybe it was a good solution at the time, the consequence of that was dramatic, and I think we're going to feel it for years to come with our students.
So well said.
So students coming in, sure, reaching higher. We even have an online version. Remember, we worked on the online
Yeah.
version because we have to keep this going, right?
Yes.
If we can't be there in person, let's provide it to them the best way possible, and that had a positive outcome as well.
Yes, it did.
But there's no substitute for the face-to-face, the energy that we all feel together
Absolutely.
when we're in the classroom, the gestures, the tone of voice, all that stuff comes to play and just builds the students up in ways that you could never achieve remotely.
Yeah.
So I think if you just make the choice, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but you might say, okay, this time next year I'm going to be in a classroom. Just like setting goals. You know how we have a session on setting goals.
Absolutely.
Right? So
One of our most important.
One of our most important is setting goals, the SMART goals. And if we can get adults to think about setting some goals for yourself, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna do something for somebody else today. Well, how am I gonna do that? I don't really know. Well, I heard from Steve that he's doing this thing over here, or from Troy, or from Susie, or from Chris,
Right.
James, our host. Maybe I should try that. I was terrified during my first class. It's natural to feel like, oh, I'm going to be a mentor. I'm not a mentor. I'm not mentor material. Nobody's going to look up
I
to
hear
me.
I hear that a ton.
Right? So,
What do you say when someone says that? I'm not mentor material.
when someone says that to me,
Yeah.
well, I say, well, you don't have any idea what the power of yourself really is until you
That's
get to
right.
put it to the test and put it in the
Absolutely.
classroom.
So well said. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You've got to excavate that on your own. It doesn't just poof appear on a table. Okay, I'm a good mentor now. You'll find out in the first session, the first day, the first class, what a great mentor you really are. That hidden talent you have, and really, it just comes from a core interest in serving and helping where you can. You don't have to be a professional. Like I said, I was scared to death. I was afraid of these high school kids. I had no idea how to interact with a 16, 17-year-old
I know.
brat or whoever, troublemaker. But you learn it as you go, and there's all these other people around you to help you with it. The instructors are beautiful at jumping in when you're getting in the weeds a little bit. They know, and they're going to come to your rescue right away, and you're not going to make too many mistakes.
Yeah.
So I just say, go for it.
Yeah.
You just have to have a heart to care.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah.
And to give. And when you walk out of that classroom, you can skip down the street. Because you know what, you made a difference in somebody else's life, and there's no money or anything that can take place of that.
Some of my best days back at work after teaching a reaching higher class in the morning are the experiences that I have right after I leave the classroom. The first few people that I run into or talk to, or business associates, staff, team members, whatever it is, they know where I was that morning. They know because that euphoric feeling you get from serving, and the other side reciprocates and thanks you for it. And you can just see them building on that little love for you in a certain way that is contagious. So you're going to carry that forward into your business world, into your family, your community life, your volunteer life, whatever it is. The stuff you get out of being there in the classroom with those kids carries forward in so many ways.
So many ways.
Absolutely makes us a better person. I mean, I've been teaching for 25 years and doing this for 25 years, and I had a 10-hour day yesterday with a graduation in a class, and I got home last night. I wasn't even tired. I was just so exhilarated from just being with those kids and watching their hearts open up. It's just life-changing.
And the parents are so thankful when you have graduation and the testimonial letters are read for the folks that are listening to this podcast. If you haven't been to a graduation, it's one of the most incredible, moving experiences that you'll ever have in your life, because you sit and listen to the letters of testimony. This is what my life was like before I had the Reaching Higher class.
Yes.
And they're not all gloom and doom letters. There's some, but when you read, a lot of them, if you know what they're really trying to say, a lot of them are just screaming in that first part of pre-Reaching Higher. They are in the classroom literally screaming because they are so wound up, full of anxiety, a lot of them with depression, a lot of them with some suicidal thoughts even.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cutting, self-harm, all kinds of dumb
Absolutely.
mistakes and dumb things that they're doing.
Yep.
And for parents, if I could speak to the parents, I would say you have absolutely no downside to asking the school counselor to get your student involved in Reaching Higher, even if they're the captain of the football team.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't.
Totally.
The leadership and the life skills you learn there carry through to your business life, your professional life, your family life, your love life, all of it. from right there what you're learning in that classroom. And I had the honor of learning from the Maharaja, all-knowing, all-seeing Susie Dahlman. That was some of the greatest moments of my life, is being in the classroom with you, watching you work with those kids, because those are precious little snippets of my PhD in how to treat people the right way, is watching you.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much. You know what? And some of my best moments was with you.
Well, thank you.
Because you're the one
very
that
kind.
helped me to plant the seeds to get in touch more children and help me to think bigger. Can't thank you enough.
Every school, every student, every year.
That's what our goal is.
That's what our goal is.
Right.
Right?
Right on.
And Steve, I was just at Millennium graduation last night, and to also just speak to the parents that are listening. Really what we're doing is we're coming alongside of them and the message that they're giving their child also. We're strengthening them, because so many parents got up and said, it's what I've been telling them all along, but they wouldn't believe me.
Absolutely.
But there's something powerful when a volunteer in the community comes in and not just talks at them, but shares how they might have a fear and they're going to go attack that this week. And then, they gain the courage to go believe it.
Right.
That's the power.
Absolutely. You crack the egg at that point, because you can preach, as a parent, I can give you factual data. I could preach something. Son, don't put your hand on that stove. I'm going to tell you, it's going to hurt.
Right.
Oh, sure, Dad. I could tell him 52 times, you probably don't want to hang out with that friend over there. I'm thinking that guy's going to take you down a bad path. Yeah, okay, Dad, I'll see you later. I'll go play with my other buddies, not him. And then he goes right to his house. Yeah. Right? So, but then in the classroom, I'm probably going to preach the same message to the students. I mean, this happens after session 4, 5, 6. You
Right.
get to know them pretty well. You understand some of the stuff going on. And my mom's always preaching with me. She says, I got some bad friends. I need to make new friends. Well, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Let me tell you, I think that, from what I know about you, you are such an awesome person with so much awesome potential. I would think you are well deserving of friends who support you and love you and would never attack you or criticize you or put you in a bad way or encourage you to make a bad decision. So maybe choosing friends could become more of a priority, a deliberate, intentional part of your life. And you just mentioned a few little tips like that. All of a sudden they're thinking, my friends are really losers. I need to start looking around
That's
a little
right.
bit. Well, the parents been preaching that for years.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being here. There's so many great reminders. You're such a great man. You have a huge heart.
Does.
And it's just it's a pleasure to know you and to serve alongside of you.
Now, thank you, Troy, and I'm so thankful for you and all. I know you got a lot of man hours invested in Reaching Higher as well.
Sure does.
And I'm not thinking there's too many big paychecks coming his way.
No.
Another volunteer like me. So thank you, Troy, for everything you do for Reaching Higher. And Susie, I think you walk on water, and they're going to write books about you. And I think you're probably the greatest, most powerful, positive influence on our youth today. So love you. Thanks for having me here today.
It meant a lot to me to have you here. Thanks for being the wind beneath our wings.
Yes, Steve. Thank you.
We got great
Thank
people
you.
around us.
We sure do.
Thanks.
Good things are coming.
Amen.
Thanks.